Okay, so have you ever, I don't know, just kind of daydreamed about, the end of the world?
Hmm. I think we all have at some point. It's kind of a human thing, right? To
Oh.
imagine those what if scenarios.
Right. And I don't mean like in a morbid way, but it's like this weird fascination, like what would happen if?
It's true. We see it everywhere. Ancient myths, those old apocalyptic books, even disaster movies. People are drawn to these stories about the end of things.
Totally. It's like a car crash you can't look away from. But what's interesting to me is these end of the world stories, they say more about us than any real future, don't they?
Absolutely. They're like a reflection of whatever anxieties people were feeling at the time, like a funhouse mirror on society's fears.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to, rank some doomsday scenarios, but not just for fun. We're really going to try to break them down, figure out what they say about us, and get this. We found this source. They've got this whole end times prophecy tier list, right?
A tier list. That's kind of brilliant, actually.
Right. They've ranked like everything
Yeah.
from the mildly concerning stuff to like completely bonkers, off the wall ideas.
So where do we even start with a list like that? I mean, it's a whole spectrum of doom.
Well, they've got it divided up, which is helpful.
Yeah.
I figure we start at the bottom, work our way up. The C tier, they call it the uncomfortably real scenarios.
Okay, so like low-level anxiety-inducing stuff. What kind of things are we talking about here?
Stuff that's, well, a little too close to home for comfort, honestly. Think climate change, global financial collapse, that kind of thing.
Right, and those are things people are really worried about right now.
Exactly. It's not some abstract threat. It's like you can see it happening. We're living it.
Yeah, you don't have to look far to see the effects of climate change. We've got, what, record heat waves, those crazy storms that keep popping up.
And it's not going away anytime soon, is it? It's like we keep getting these warnings, but
But it's hard to change things, right?
yeah.
Because it's such a big problem,
Yeah.
and it feels so distant sometimes.
And the source we found, they make this point about like how everything's connected, the environment, our economies, everything's linked.
Oh, absolutely. Like one small change somewhere can have these huge ripple effects everywhere else.
Mhm.
It's a bit scary when you really think about it.
Totally. And like on top of all that, we've got the whole global financial collapse thing looming over our heads.
Oh, yeah. The economy. Can't forget about that. It feels like we go through this cycle, right? Things are good, then they're bad, then good again.
It's true, but I feel like there's this underlying anxiety now, Like, what if this time it's really bad?
Well, they do say history repeats itself.
Right. It's like this echo from the past. Like, remember the Great Depression? That wasn't exactly a picnic.
No, definitely not. And that's a good example. The source uses that to show even after a total economic crash, things can get better. Societies can rebuild.
So there's hope, even after a complete meltdown.
There's always hope.
Yeah.
But it is a good reminder, like how connected everything is.
Right. So that's the C tier, huh? Slow burn. Not exactly comforting stuff.
Nope, not exactly. So where do we go from here? What's next on the doomsday hit parade?
Well, if we're moving up the ladder of doom, next we've got the B tier. They call these the plausible but hopefully not scenarios. We're getting a bit more, shall we say, Hollywood here.
Oh, so less about melting glaciers, more about like robots taking over the world.
You got it. We're talking AI takeovers, nuclear Armageddon, the classics.
Okay, so we went from unsettling to like straight up sci-fi thriller.
Pretty much. But, and this is what I find interesting, these B-tier threats, they're not totally outside the realm of possibility.
Well, yeah, that's what makes them so scary. There's that element of what if this actually happens? I mean, we've all seen those headlines, right? AI is going to take over the world. Makes you wonder about your smart speaker sometimes.
Right. Like, is it listening? Is it judging my taste in music?
Well, hopefully not. But the thing is, the AI we have now, it's not quite the super intelligent bees you see in the movies.
So no Terminator situation. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Our source makes it clear. Right now, AI is mostly focused on very specific tasks. Like, it can beat you at chess, maybe recommend a new book, but it can't think for itself, not really.
Okay, so that's a relief. But they did mention something about unintended consequences. What's that all about?
Ah, right. See, it's not about AI becoming evil. It's more like even a small mistake in a really complex system can spiral out of control.
Oh, like that butterfly effect thing.
Exactly. Except instead of a butterfly, it's a line of bad code that crashes the entire stock market or something.
Okay, that's a scary thought. And we're using AI for more and more stuff every day.
Exactly. So it's not about being afraid of AI, but we gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Think about those unintended consequences.
Makes sense. All right, so AI is one thing, but what about the big one? The one everyone's always worried about? nuclear war.
Right, the classic. It's like that threat's been around since, what, the 1950s?
It's like this constant background hum of anxiety. But it feels like, with everything going on in the world, it's maybe more relevant than ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And our source brings up a good point. It's not just about the immediate destruction. It's, well, remember that whole mutually assured destruction thing?
MAD. Yeah, I remember learning about that in history class. Basically, nobody wants to start a nuclear war because everyone loses.
Right. But the thing is, that only works if everybody's thinking clearly
Right.
and communicating. And that's not always guaranteed.
Especially not when tensions are high. And it feels like there are more countries with nukes now than ever before.
It's true. And even a small conflict, like a regional thing, if nukes get involved, that impacts everyone. We're talking about, what, nuclear winter, fallout. It's not pretty.
Okay, so maybe those C-tier anxieties weren't so bad after all. At least it was a slow burn.
Well, hold on now, because things are about to get even more intense. We're moving on to the A tier. Extreme, but possible.
Oh no, what have we got now?
These scenarios are less likely, statistically speaking, but they remind us that nature is powerful and sometimes things happen that we just can't predict.
Okay, so what are we talking about? Giant asteroid hitting the Earth.
You got it. The dinosaur extinction event. People still remember that.
Right, who could forget? I mean, if an asteroid wiped them out.
It makes you think, right? Like, for all our technology, we're still kind of at the mercy of the cosmos.
So, what are the chances of that actually happening? Are we doomed?
Well, let's not panic just yet. The good news is, places like NASA, they're constantly watching for those things. Tracking asteroids, that's what they do.
Right, and they've gotten pretty good at it, right? I mean, didn't they just crash that spacecraft into an asteroid on purpose? The DART mission.
Exactly. DART was a test run, basically. They wanted to see if they could knock an asteroid off course if they had to.
Okay, so maybe we're not totally defenseless. Still kind of freaky to think about. But honestly, asteroid impacts, not really something I worry about on a daily basis.
Right, there are more immediate concerns.
Exactly. Like, I don't know, another global pandemic. That feels a little too real after the last few years.
You're hitting on something really important there, because that's up next on the list, the pandemic supervirus. And you're right, this one might hit a little close to home for some people.
It's like we all just lived through that. It's still fresh.
Right, but it shows you how vulnerable we are. How quickly things can change. 1 minute, everything's normal. The next, the whole world is in lockdown.
And the thing that gets me is it wasn't even that long ago. It really makes you think, like, what if it happens again?
And that's the thing about pandemics. They spread so fast in our interconnected world. And our source mentioned something even scarier. Bioengineered pathogens.
Wait, like, viruses made in a lab? That's straight out of a nightmare.
It's a chilling thought, right? And while it's not very likely, it's something we have to consider.
It's like we've got enough to worry about with natural viruses.
I know, right? But think about it. The COVID-19 pandemic showed us just how vulnerable we are and how quickly a new virus can spread.
It's a good reminder to, wash your hands and all that.
Exactly. But it also showed us that we can be innovative. Think about how fast they developed those vaccines.
That's true. So maybe there's hope, even if things get bad again.
There's always hope. But are you ready to leave the realm of the semi-plausible and jump into some truly wild scenarios? Because the S tier and beyond, that's where things get really interesting.
Oh, trust me, I'm ready. Hit me with your best shot. What's the wildest end-of-the-world scenario you've got?
Buckle up, because the S tier is a wild ride. We're talking about those scenarios that are so out there, so improbable, they make pandemics and asteroids look like a walk in the park.
Okay, hit me. What's first up on our apocalypse bingo card? Alien invasion, black hole swallowing the Earth. I'm ready for anything.
Well, you're in luck because the source doesn't disappoint. They've got alien invasions, black holes, you name it. It's like they took every sci-fi trope in the book and said, how can we make this an apocalypse?
Okay, so alien invasion. Let's start there. That's a classic. What's their take on how that all goes down?
It's funny, isn't it, how that idea never really gets old. But it says a lot about us, don't you think?
Oh.
That fear of the unknown. Like what's out there in the vastness of space and what happens when it shows up on our doorstep.
Right. It's like that primal fear of being small and insignificant. Like we think we're so advanced, but what if we're just ants to some super intelligent alien species?
Yeah. And the source plays on that, They suggest that even a friendly alien encounter could go sideways pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Their technology, their biology, it could be so different from ours that even a simple interaction could have unintended consequences.
So forget lasers and death rays. The real threat is alien germs.
It's a possibility. We've seen how much trouble a new virus can cause even here on Earth. Now imagine a virus from another planet, something our immune systems have never encountered before.
Okay, that's just terrifying. Let's move on. What else is on the S-tier menu of doom?
Well, if alien invasions aren't your thing, how about microscopic nanobots consuming the entire planet?
Wait, what? I vaguely remember hearing about this. The gray goose scenario, right?
You got it. It sounds absolutely bonkers, like something straight out of a bad sci-fi movie. But it does make you think about the implications of nanotechnology, right?
Okay, break it down for me. What exactly is the gray goose scenario? And should I be investing in nanobot-proof hazmat suits anytime soon?
So imagine these microscopic robots,
Yeah.
right? Nanobots. And they're programmed to manipulate matter at the atomic level.
Okay, that sounds kind of cool, actually.
It does have potential. Theoretically, you could program these nanobots to do all sorts of things. Clean up pollution, repair ecosystems, maybe even reverse climate change.
So where's the apocalypse part come in?
The problem is, what if something goes wrong? What if there's a glitch in the code and these nanobots start replicating uncontrollably? They could consume everything in their path, turning the entire planet into, well, gray goo.
Okay, yeah, that would be bad. But how likely is that to actually happen? Is this something I should be losing sleep over?
It's highly improbable, thankfully. We're nowhere near that level of nanotechnology yet. But it's a good reminder that with any new technology, there are always risks and unintended consequences to consider.
It's like that old saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
So we've covered alien invasions, runaway nanobots. What other doomsday delights does the S tier have in store?
Well, from here on out, things get really out there. We're talking about scenarios like the Earth being swallowed by a black hole, the universe collapsing in on itself, or even the possibility that we're all just living in a giant computer simulation.
Okay, now you're just messing with me, right?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But even these seemingly absurd scenarios serve a purpose. They make us think about our place in the grand scheme of things.
Right, like what is reality, man?
Exactly. It's all about perspective.
Well, I have to say, after this deep dive into the apocalypse, I'm feeling strangely optimistic.
Really? Why is that?
Because even though we're out here imagining all these ways the world could end, we're still here. We're still curious, still searching for answers. It gives me hope that maybe, just maybe, we'll figure out a way to avoid these disasters altogether.
I like that. A little bit of existential dread can be good for the soul, right?
Mhm.
Makes you appreciate what we have.
Exactly. So to all our listeners out there, keep asking those big questions, keep exploring the what ifs, and don't be afraid of a little bit of healthy paranoia. It might just save the world.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to step back from the brink of annihilation and enjoy what's left of our day.
Agreed. Thanks for joining us for this apocalyptic adventure. Until next time, stay curious.